evening, Thomas. How are you tonight?
Well, I'm just great. Thank you very much. How are you?
I am doing just fine. And just for the record, if you don't want video, you don't have to use it because we're just audio.
Okay.
But that's up to you. If you want to keep it on, that's fine. Um,
Well, you
I,
can see me react.
yeah. And maybe if a Bigfoot comes through the
Yeah, there
wall,
you go. So
yeah.
you can be the witness in case the Bigfoot comes up and grabs me for giving up the goods on him.
Right. Well, hey, Thomas, I welcome you to the show. I'm looking forward to getting into this a bit. I gave a very short, brief bio, and I guess we'll start out with maybe you giving a background, where your interest came in Bigfoot, and we'll go from there.
Well, people always asking me, why did you do a movie on Bigfoot? I've been doing documentary films since the late 80s. And I've probably done, gosh, I lost count at 35. So, you know, it was in 1974. I went to this bar in Los Angeles called Charlie Brown's. Actually, it was Marina Del Rey. My cousin and I, we've been working all day. We just wanted to go get a cocktail or a beer or something. I can't remember what it was. And so we're sitting there at the bar, and this old codger comes hobbling up, and he was probably about 80 years old. And, so he just sat down, and just something about this guy was really, I've always been a people person. I love talking to people and meeting them and seeing what they're all about. So I started chatting with this guy, and his name was Wally. And Wally told me he was a lumberjack. Well, now we call them tree fallers, but back in the 80s or 70s, they were lumberjacks. And so I said, so tell me your story, Wally. Well, you seem like an interesting guy. He said, well, what I want to do tell you about is my encounter with a Bigfoot. And I kind of chuckled, and I said, really? And he goes, yeah. And so he told me this crazy story about he was working late in the woods one night, and he's driving home, and he comes across this tree that's fallen across the road. And so, not thinking anything of it, he chains it up and pulls it back, and he gets back, goes to throwing the chain back in the back of the truck. And he says he's approached by this Bigfoot. This Bigfoot comes running at him and stops right in front of him. In fact, I put the story up on, the Bigfoot Chronicles Facebook page, and that, he just reenacts his story, and we had an actor do it, of course, but because Wally would be 120 now or something, but this is the seed that was planted in me in 1974, and and I always been into films. My dad worked for ABC, and so I've got kind of cellulite running through my blood, and so I fast forward 25 years. Here it is, 2010, and I decided that by golly, I've done a lot of documentary film work, and I really wanted to do, and I wanted to do something before that, but I just decided that I was going to go ahead and make a film about Bigfoot. And it was going to be a documentary at first, and so I started doing my research, and I ran across this woman named Linda. And I can't recall her last name, but I ended up, and I love her, but I call her Bigfoot Linda, and that's kind of my reference to her. And she told me some pretty amazing stories about growing up in the woods with her grandma and her grandpa, and the interaction that they had with I guess, several Bigfoot, that they would trade meat for pies and bread and things like that. And so I just decided that I was going to do, instead of a documentary, I was going to do a docudrama. So, because in a docudrama, you carry a storyline, and you can keep people engaged instead of just pouring out fact after fact after fact. And that's always the challenge in doing a documentary. Most of my documentary work has been, anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes in length. The Bigfoot Chronicles is an hour and a half. So I needed some vehicle to keep them engaged in it. And so what I did is I ended up writing a story about this filmmaker who had lost everything in his life, and he's approached by this Indian coalition of Indian tribes to go up and film Bigfoot, do some Bigfoot investigation in the forest, and because they felt like this would help them fight off the threat of the powers that want to clear cut the forest. Now, Michael, I don't know if you've ever seen a forest after it's been clear cut. I've seen plenty of them.
Yeah, it looks like a war zone. And, let me ask you: do you have
Sure.
a fan running nearby? By chance, I hear a little fan going. Now,
Is that better?
yeah, that is better.
Okay, I do have a fan. I'm in a room that's pretty warm.
Okay, sorry about that. It's just
no worries. No worries. I just get a little ambient.
So yeah, I've seen a forest that has been chopped away, and it does. It looks like a war zone.
Well, in Oregon, we've got some foreign countries that put ships off the coast, and they go in and they clear cut the land, and they process the lumber outside of the outside of the waters of. Hang on a second. Let me turn this fan off.
All right, he's hooking us up, folks.
There we go. Outside of the waters, and I mean, what they're doing in the forest is it's gross. I mean, it's just disgusting. And and they're doing it. They're taking all the resources out of the United States. So I mean, this is kind of about that as well. But it's mostly about Bigfoot, and that's kind of one of the themes. And that's one of the little side notes that I put in there because I don't believe in going crazy over global warming because I've been worried about it ever since the first mastodon had died.
Yeah.
But I'm all about conservation and protecting our planet. I mean that's a pretty amazing thing that's going on. But, so anyway, I started writing this script, and I've written 5 or 6 different versions of it, and I finally decided that I wanted a version that my granddaughter could watch. And she was 5 at the time in 2010. She was 5, and that to me was very important. So I made it totally G-rated, and there's not a curse word in it. I heard your commentary on the fellas that were cursing and everything.
Yeah.
And and like you, I use the full spectrum of the English language, but if I drop an F-bomb, something's going on with me. So I mean, it's appropriateness, and I kind of laugh at some of these people that the F word is the only adjective or adverb they know, and they use it 5 or 6 times in a sentence, and it always cracks me up. So are you still getting that feedback?
Yeah, I am still. I'm actually hearing it a little worse now.
Yeah, too, and doesn't have anything to do with the fan because the fan is off. And
it could be the computer's fan coming over the sound card, maybe.
Well, that is a possibility. Is that better? That seems to be better right there, huh?
Yeah, that does seem to be better. Oh, good. You hear it too, then. So then you know.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is, but now I'm standing farther away from the computer, so I'm hooked by a little cord.
Okay. Well, I don't want you to stand the whole time.
No, that's all right. I've been sitting all day. But I'll, don't worry about me, Michael. I know what to do.
All right.
So I'm writing this script, and I made this story about this filmmaker, the guy that's lost everything, and he's asked to go up to the mountains. At first, he refuses. He says, "I don't do fairy tales," and so they have a big discussion about Bigfoot, and they have a big discussion about other cryptozoological stuff, and like the giant squid, that they once thought was just a mariner's fairy tale.
Yeah.
And so they talk about the different kinds of new species that are coming up, and so it's really an engaging film. Now we've had several test viewings of it, and our focus groups that we showed it to, they loved it because there's a lot of humor in it. Because when you're making a movie about Bigfoot, you can't be too serious about it, right? so there's a lot of humor in it. But I'll tell you one of the phenomena that I thought was very interesting is that, if you go to BigfootChronicles.com, at the very bottom, there's a thing called Special Offer, okay? Now, if you click on that, then what you're going to see is you're going to see the poster that we made. And I carried that poster around for probably 6 months as I was working on the screenplay. It actually took me about 2 years to finish the screenplay. But for about 6 months, I'm carrying this poster around. I have it in a binder, so a lot of people are seeing it. I go into restaurants, and the waiter, like one of them, Sherry's walked up to me. He says, "Oh, I've seen him. In fact, I was going to shoot one of them the other day." And he said, "But my gun didn't work." And I said, "Well, that's good." I'm sure he appreciates that. And then I had other friends that, like school teachers that I know that, said, "Oh, yeah, I've seen him myself." And, a good friend of mine who's a principal told me. And then I get random people telling me when I tell them what I'm working on, "Oh, yeah, I saw it." And it was a matter of fact, like, there it is. I saw it, And then on the other side, I have people that say, "Well, there ain't no such thing. Show me the evidence. Show me this. Show me that." And the reality is that, here's the deal. You mentioned the Yeti that had been found. If that thing, let's just say, for giggle's sake, that is an actual, true Yeti, and it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that there really is Yeti and Bigfoot and whatnot. Okay, say it does. Who's going to believe it?
Right.
Who's going to believe it? I could show you, in fact, the research that I've done, and this all comes out in the movie, not all of it.
Well, it would have to come over Fox News and CNN before anybody believed it.
Even then, and who's gonna be the reporter to break it? Nobody's gonna get up and say, "Oh yeah, I saw this is real," blah blah blah. Because that thing they did back several years ago with Rick Dyer, remember that, where they found the one that was down in Georgia or something?
I had that guy. I had him on the show once just to give him hell, and I gotta say, outside of being, in my opinion, a dirtbag for doing what he did, he's got that personality where you could, I could see where he could fool people.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I started working on Bigfoot Chronicles back in 2000. Well, probably 11 or 12, when I really started going after putting the funding together for it. I put the word out, and somehow he heard about it, and he contacted me. He said, "I want to get involved in this," and blah, blah, blah. And I just had the sense about me, like, this is not somebody that I want to work with. And, I follow my instincts a lot when it comes to stuff like that. So, that's all I can say about him.
Yeah.
But, with that being said, when I started, I had everything lined up. Now, I don't know if you read that original press release that I sent you, but I had everything ready to go. I mean, I had the location set, I had the talent set, I had the equipment set, I had all the crew, and everything was ready to roll. And my vision started acting up on me. And so it concerned me a little bit, so I went into the eye doctor just to get a quick check. And so what happened when I went to the eye doctor is he said, "You got a little freckle on your retina, and I think we need to check that out." And I go, "What do you mean, a little freckle?" He said, "It's really rare, it's probably nothing, but you do need to go to the retinologist and have him check it out." Well, next thing you know, I'm up at OHSU, which is Oregon Health Sciences University. And I'm being examined for a thing called choroidal melanoma, which is basically cancer in the eye. Okay. Now, a little backstory is that I have had amblyopia my whole life, meaning that my left eye has been, virtually, or if my left eye was my good eye, I would be legally blind. Okay. And so I'm walking around now. I have cancer in my good eye. And they do a procedure on me, and I had a choice. I said, well, I can either continue with the project or put everything off. It would have been really easy to put it off, but I decided to go forward with it because after the procedure, I could still see, and I said, let's go for it. I mean, it was my vision had been restricted considerably, but I could still see well enough to get this thing going. And so, the first half of the movie, I shot when I was blind in one eye and couldn't see out of the other. And one of the problems that we had is I was wearing these thick glasses, and I would take the glasses off to shoot the scene. Sometimes I would forget to take the glasses off, and we'd have to go back and reshoot the scene. And this happened more than once, and it was pretty annoying to do that. And so we get about 50% the way through the principal photography. I've got a crew of about 20 people, and I had 3 key people. I had a producer, the key grip, and the director of photography. They all came in to me one day and they said, we want to renegotiate our contracts. I said, well, there is no renegotiating a contract. We have a deal. You said you would do it for this price, and I'm going to hold you to that. And so they said that they weren't going to do it. And so I said, well, I hope the next picture you work on, you get it right the first time. And so I basically told them to pound sand, and I went out and found somebody else to help me finish it. And that's where, but the other problem that I had was my eyesight was starting to get worse, okay? And so I needed somebody to come in and help me direct it. And so my friend Calvin Kennedy, who has worked on several films with me over the years, I called him up and said, Calvin, you got to help me finish this. And, nobody wants to come in the middle of the project and finish somebody else's work, because you're going to take the hits for whatever mistakes they made along with you. So, I finally talked to him and I begged him. Basically, I didn't have to he had to think about it for a while. So he came in and helped me finish it. And so a month later, we started back up the production. And by then, I was really struggling with my eyesight. And that's a good thing, because it's a good thing that I brought it in. And so we finished the principal photography. And then, because of the labor issues and stuff like that, I ran out of money. And so I had to go out and I had to hustle up money to get everybody paid off for what I had done, and also to pay for the editing as it went forward. And so, these obstacles were in the way, and I just kind of said, well, this is challenging, but, I'm going to finish this movie. In fact, the main theme of the movie, believe it or not, is to finish what you start. That's the character is Rock, and he's going to finish this project that he's working on. And that's, so when I'm there, I'm playing Rock, and I'm actually living that part, because I'm faced with those challenges. So I ran out of money, and I just went out and I hustled up some more money so I could get the editing paid. And then as we're going through the editing process, I had some other issues, and I went to the doctor, and the doctor says, your PSA is a little high, you need to go to the urologist and get them checked. And so they did a test on me and found out that I had prostate cancer. And so, they took me in for surgery, and I had surgery, and I just kept going. I just kept, I had to not work for, a couple of weeks because of that. And then I hauled around for a couple more weeks. But I was back on it. They got most of it edited, and this was 2 years ago, or 2013. That was just about 2 years ago. And, then we had the movie pretty much finished. We were still tweaking it and working on it. And then I had to start to promote it and find a distributor for it. Well, finding a distributor, that's kind of like the holy grail of filmmaking. I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy to make a film, but I will tell you that making a film is a lot easier than it is to find a distributor for it. So it took me about a year and a half, and I finally found a distributor. It's New Kingdom Pictures out of Florida, and they just love the movie. They love the concept. They love everything about it, and they're working through Alchemy, which used to be Millennium Pictures, and they've worked with everybody like Robert De Niro, and you name it, they've worked with them. And so I was really fortunate to get those guys involved in the show, and we actually released it 3 weeks ago, and during the 3 weeks, it's been available at Walmart. There's been a lot of Walmarts that have been selling out. The sales have been very brisk. It's on Amazon Prime. You can buy it on Amazon. In fact, on eBay, they were selling it for more than the retail price at one point. And so, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
Okay, and I want to take my break a few minutes early here, and what I'm hoping that maybe on the break, I'll have to put you on hold during the break, but maybe we could get this worked out a little bit, because at times your voice, the sound gets louder and your voice gets faint. And while I can hear you and make out what you're saying, it is tough for some of the listeners. It sounds to me like the processor of the computer and the fan is coming over the sound card and interfering. That's what it sounds like. I don't know though.
Well, I can put the microphone a little closer to my mouth. I don't know if that helps or not.
It may, or if not, I guess the only other option is if you email me a phone number, I can call you.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
All right, so why don't we do that, and I'll check my email on the break here, and then I'll get it situated that way. Or you could hit me right here on Skype with it, if you like. So
yeah, I can.
All right, so then I'll hang up with you right now, and I'm going to go on break. We'll be about 5 minutes. So
okay, perfect.
All right, so we'll be back in a moment, folks. We're going to get this fixed right now because I got really good headphones. And I'm telling you what, it's like I'm in a plane and I've got the window down and I've got my head hanging out the window. That's how it sounds to me, and can't do that no more. So let's take this break.
Oh, good.
All right, well, you had left off, you were telling us about the movie. And
okay,
and so let me ask you, and let me hit one of our listeners' questions first. She asked, "Does your Bigfoots in the movie, do they look human or like ape or dogs, or what look do they have?" Oh, did we lose you? You gotta be kidding me, folks. Here we go. All right, so we'll ask him again here in just a second. Let me call him back. Yeah, well, let's try this again. All right. Notice how it gets low like that? I don't know what's going on.
Well, this has been, maybe this is part of, I was talking to somebody the other day that the government has this big conspiracy thing going about Bigfoot. Maybe this electronic issues we're having.
Well, that's true now. I mean, and of course it's the silly things that are the truest, so you never know. Maybe I know.
Okay, well, I think we're good to go now.
All right, good. Well, JH asks about the Bigfoots based on even the accounts, the people you've spoke with, and your perception of Bigfoot in the movie. What does he look like? Does he look more like ape? Does he look like Chewbacca? What does he look like?
Well, the one thing that people agree on, in fact, the poster that we have was done by a wildlife artist named Dodie Clifford, and she passed away last year. And this was actually her last thing that she had done, and she actually talked to several people, and we drew a composite of what Bigfoot looks like. And it looks more like a Neanderthal man than it does an ape. And it looks, like there's some human features of it. And some of these things that we see now are just way exaggerated, like the picture that you have on your website of the Yeti. That to me, that doesn't strike as anything that would be walking on two legs. But, you talked about, some aliens, that you believe in aliens, but you know what? We're all aliens. Come on.
I agree.
So to answer your question directly, I have heard all kinds of different explanations, and we did a rendering of what we thought, these people were describing Bigfoot, and that's who shows up in the movie. So,
I see.
So I hope that answers your question.
I think so. I think so. See, I've heard different accounts of Bigfoot. I had a guy I interviewed years ago from Florida, the swampland type areas, and he said that they called him the skunk ape there, and so they had different names, different places, and that one that I have with the news story on the website, one that was apparently in an auction, looks more like an abominable snowman that was left as roadkill to me. I mean, that's what it looks like, but I don't think it's real. I really don't. But. Yeah,
there's the commonality are 7 feet, 400 pounds, dark fur. I'm trying to think, and the pointed heads. I mean, there's some commonalities about him, but other than that, the depiction that I got from and I've talked to several people that had encounters with him. I've several, not just one or two. I mean, a bunch of them. And I mean, not people that heard something goofy in the woods or whatever, but I mean, people that actually saw him.
And could you share some of those stories with us?
Well, actually, I did in the movie, and that was part of the, and the first one was Wally, and and you can go on the Facebook and you can see the Wally, the Wally interview as he talked about it, and we have trailers, BigfootChronicles.com. We have trailers, and where we're talking about. If you go to the website, there's a place called Additional Footage, and that has some of those interviews that we had, and some of them are pretty funny. I mean, the reality is I've heard some stories. In fact, as I'm researching this, I went up to Mount Shasta, California. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but that's some kind of a mystical area, and Bigfoot there is a purported member of the Mystical Brotherhood, and the Mystical Brotherhood is the leading. I mean, is the governing agency of Lemuria, and Lemuria is a continent that's located beneath the Pacific Ocean, halfway between Japan and California. And some of these people believe this stuff like you wouldn't, in fact, they have a festival day in Mount Shasta City that, the people will bring boxes of food for the Lemurians that they can take, and the boxes always disappear. And so, go tell me about that. I don't know.
So Bigfoot could be a descendant of Lemuria.
Absolutely, they say he's Lemurian. And one of the interviews they talk about. Well, that's why you find so many of them in Northern California, because they do come out of, Mount Shasta, the passageway that. And then there's other people that believe that Bigfoot's an alien, that he has mind control. And so again, these are stories that show up in the movie. And I hate to tell you this, but this is kind of a love story, and it's the girls love this movie because it's almost a chick flick.
See, and that's okay though, because Hollywood always has the ETs are always killing somebody. Bigfoot's ripping their heads off. It's about time Bigfoot shows a little love.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is more about the people who track Bigfoot. We talk about some of the original Bigfoot trackers and some of the things that they learned, and they figured out that Bigfoot travels a long distance every year, and that he's very smart, and he's really kind of a benevolent soul. That the only time that people ever hear of a Bigfoot attacking is when they're packing, they're carrying a gun, or trying to kill Bigfoot. In fact, the movie starts off with an incident where somebody is trying to shoot a Bigfoot, and it doesn't turn out very well for the guy trying to shoot the Bigfoot. So let's see what else. And we had. And as I'm doing this thing, I'm talking to people. We went up into the woods several times, and there was one place where my son found that, and I'll just let you figure out what it is, because I never have been able to figure out. If you took a circle that maybe had a radius of maybe 100 feet, okay. And so maybe the diameter is like 200 feet, like maybe 2/3 of a football field, right? And it's kind of a circle. And so in this area, it was high up in the mountains, and in this area, and I'll say one more thing, it was very obscure. I mean, it's like we had to hike in like 5 miles to get to it. And, you know, we went up to this place, and my son's an avid hunter, and so that's how he stumbled on this place. And he said, Dad, you got to come look at this place. You got to come look at this. It's crazy. And so we went up there, and we hiked in, and, you know, in this circle of maybe 200 feet across, there were the remains and skeletal remains of maybe 200 animals. And I mean, we had animals from deer to goats. We had some bear in there, and there was a couple of cows, and, you know, and it smelled, oh my God, it smelled so bad. And, you know, so we're in there, and, you know, and when I go out in the woods, I pack a 45. I mean, I always do that, and, you know, who knows? I mean, you know, it's like the guy told me one time, he said, varmints are varmints, right? I think sometimes they're on 2 legs and sometimes they're not. And I mean, we're talking about really backwoods country up there. So I'm packing this 45, you know, and the back of my hair on the back of my neck started standing up, and I heard these grumbling, growl kind of things going on. We had this horrible stench that was going on. And I'm telling you, every instinct that I had was to haul my butt out of there. And I told my son, I said, we camped there the night, and man, that was the scariest night I've ever had. I mean, I didn't sleep a wink. I'm sitting there by the campfire the whole time. And, you know, so did I see anything? No. Did I feel something? Oh, yeah. And there was times when I felt like we were being watched, but I you know, probably my paranoia. I grew up in the 60s, right? But I didn't smoke pot, and I didn't inhale, so it's all good. You know, I had my other vices.
Right.
I drank too much.
So do you think there are different races of these creatures? Like, you know, we hear skunk ape, this, that, the other thing. So do you think that, I guess, different areas, different climates, different creatures?
Well, I know that as living organisms, you know, we do mutate to, you know, blend into the circumstances and the environment that we have, and that we do, you know, oh gosh, what's the word? Evolve into different things where, you know, if you're in a colder climate, you're gonna grow more hair, and if you're in a warmer climate, you're gonna grow less hair. You're gonna be darker skinned if you're exposed to more sun. And I mean, so the human race has all these different races of people, but we're all still basically human beings, right? And so I don't see why there wouldn't be anybody wouldn't believe that, you know, there are going to be different types of Bigfoot, you know, and I do know that they're called all kinds of different things. And in fact, Teddy Roosevelt's book, you know, he wrote about the wild frontier back in 1898. He actually wrote about an encounter of a Bigfoot back then.
Now, well, that's interesting too, but I wanted to kind of go back to Lemuria for a moment, because I know that I've got a few listeners who are very interested in that aspect of it. Lemuria, so obviously somebody gave you a hint that could be a possibility. So did you look into like the past, the history of Lemuria as best you can, and try to like...
Well, I did. You know, I'm a very curious guy. You know, I have found my absolute perfect job. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I can't hold attention very long for any specific thing. I can't hold a job because I can't hold the attention. But doing a documentary film, you know, I'm working on it for 6 months or a year, and then I'm off to doing something else. You know, I've done them on, you know, the biggest thing that held my attention the most was the work that I did on substance abuse. And, you know, I produced probably 13 different films on substance abuse. I don't know, you know, if I mentioned it to you in the past, but, you know, I've been doing documentary films for, you know, since 1988, and I've done work for an organization called the International Association of Crime Prevention Practitioners. It's a very elite group of people who try to keep people safe, prevent crime for different things, robberies or sexual molestations or whatever. This is what their main thing is. And I produced some videos on personal safety for them. And they asked me, they said, Tom, would you mind producing a film for us or 2 films for us about substance abuse? And, and I never even really thought about it. And, then all of a sudden, I'm thinking about, my best friend in college died of a heroin overdose. A really good friend of mine died of a suicide caused by his heroin addiction. I had people that their lives were destroyed by pot, believe it or not, by pot. And not because of what the pot did to them, but because of what, what they were doing, because they were selling pot and doing all this other stuff. So, and so I'm thinking, well, gosh, this really has touched my life a lot. Over the years, my brother was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and so I started working on it. And in 1990, I took the assignment, and 2 years, when I work on something, I make sure first off that what I'm going to do is not going to hurt anybody. And that's my main goal, is I will not do something that's going to hurt somebody. And, so in 1992, I finally had it. I finally knew what I had to do. And so we wrote a little book called 5 Minutes a Day to Drug-Free Kids, and I was working on a film of the same name. And in April of 1992, I get a phone call from the Ventura Police Department that says that my son had just been killed by a drunk driver. And this is absolutely the worst thing a parent could ever hear. It's absolutely the worst thing. And it was for me too, because it just, it crushed me. And so, so for like the next 5 years, I was a basket case. And, I worked. I was very focused on the crime prevention work that I was doing. I was, really building a good name for myself. But, I was a mess. And so finally in 1997, I decided that, I was going to go do a film about alcohol, because alcohol is the biggest drug of all. And, more people are killed because of alcohol than anything else, and, except for cigarettes. And so I go to this emergency room, and I'm talking to this doctor, and he said, well, I'll help you with your alcohol piece, but I want to tell you about something. He said, we're having a huge problem with this new drug called methamphetamine. And I said, what are we talking about? Trucker's Friends or diet pills or what? He goes, oh, no, it's nothing like that. And so he gave me the whole lowdown on meth. And so my first film that I did was about methamphetamine. It was called Drug Wars, Quaint County. And my website that I use for that is drugwars.com. And come to find out, as I'm doing this film, my other son is, I'm thinking, my God, he's acting like he's using meth. And so I went and talked to him, and I said, so, Jim, what, are you using meth or what? He goes, oh, yeah. I go, do you know how dangerous stuff? Oh, and then we got into it in a big way, because I knew what I was talking about, and he didn't. But you're not going to convince him of anything. So I went back to my office, and I bawled for probably 4 hours, and then I decided that I was going to make this show, Drug Wars, Quaint County, for my son, to convince him what he was dealing with was not anything that he wanted to deal with. And so that's exactly what I did, and I made that show specifically for that purpose. Well, that show went across it's gone around the world. We've updated it 4 times, and it's gone around, and it's saved thousands of people from life on meth, and but still being used a lot. So we still got a lot of work to do on that. But,
I think people who peddle crack cocaine or peddle meth or peddle heroin, those people should be shark food, honestly, because those drugs right there do destroy lives. They absolutely do. And some people get out of it, clean and unscathed, but most people get caught up in that, and it winds up either killing them or destroying their lives. And people who sell it know this, and they should be held accountable.
Well, that's exactly right. Unfortunately, the majority of it's sold by people who use it. They sell it to get money to buy more so they can do it. So somewhere up the food chain is where we really have to do. But I am happy to tell you, Michael, and I'm thrilled beyond belief to tell you that my son James is doing well. He lives in the Philippine Islands now with his wife and children, and he's actually in the movie with me. And so I brought him over so he could be in the movie with me, and I couldn't be happier than I am about that. So.
I am glad to hear that because he escaped. I mean, he escaped a big one there.
But, yeah, he did. Absolutely did. Absolutely.
So,
bringing us coming back around to Lemuria. So you asked me the question about that, and yes, I did study Lemuria because when I work on a project, I want to know as much as I can about it. And so the Lemurians and all that whole thing. In fact, I even thought about writing a movie about Lemuria, and in fact, I started writing a story about it, and then I decided that it didn't fulfill what I wanted to do, and so I just let it go. But I studied Lemuria. I studied all kinds of different things as part of this. Because it took me 2 years to write the script. Actually, there's 4 or 5 versions. I can't remember if it's 4 or 5, but we had some really great ones that we didn't have the funding to do the FX for, the special effects, and so we had to let that go and get something to where we could actually afford to produce it. And, we spent a lot of money getting this thing done, too, by the way.
Yeah, I bet. I've seen some of these fundraisers that people do online for these movies. I've actually had a few guys on the show throughout the years, and it's pretty expensive. And people don't understand what it takes, to do this. They say, oh well, everyone can get good cameras and this and that now. Yeah, but there's a lot more to it than that. You got to pay.
Well,
people.
Yeah, and you got 15 guys on your set, and they're all getting pretty good wages. I mean, that burns a lot of time by the hour or the day, depending on how you're paying them. So it is expensive, and then the editing and all the other stuff that goes into it, the sound, working with the sound after the fact, all the post houses that get involved with it. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes to it.
I see. Now, the characters who tell their stories about the Bigfoot encounters. Now, their stories are actually based on true stories, correct?
Everything in there is all based on a true story. It's all. True accounts, I don't know if they're true or not, but it's based on what people have told, okay? And I want to make the distinction there. So, somebody might, but everything is very credible, because I added some stuff that they had. One of the guys talking about Bigfoot's an alien, and they're doing mind control and stuff like that. That was more of a humorous thing. When we had our focus groups watch it, they all thought the movie was just very funny, and they really enjoyed it. And the women, they love the characters, and Rock has lost everything. And when he goes up to this place called Jackson Hole, Oregon, he meets this woman, and there's some chemistry going on between the two of them. And she's kind of pissed at him half the time, and he's pushing the envelope with her. And there's one just really great scene in there where she's really mad at him, and he's walking away, and he goes, "She likes me." It's totally the opposite of what you would think. So, it's got some really great moments in it. It's got a very happy ending too, by the way.
And I want to hear about that in a moment. But Thomas, you mentioned the ET factor, and I gotta say, for me, I was saying at the beginning of the show that if this Bigfoot creature, if this whole phenomena is real, and that I think that a great percentage of people are telling true stories of what they've seen, and I think that there's also a large percentage that are mistaken identity. But then I think there's a small percentage that they're really seeing something, and nobody can explain what it is. And so, the fact that if these things are real and they're able to just go into the woods and disappear, it seems, then it could be possible that they are of some kind of extraterrestrial origins, or that they've got some kind of technology, interdimensional, because nobody can ever find them.
Well, part of the thing, is I'm going to suspend, my thinking is that, there's something to this. Now, I don't know what it is. Have I seen one? No. I've talked to so many people. Of incredible people. My friend, who was the principal at the high school, he told me he saw one. Now, why wouldn't I believe him? I mean, there's a guy that said, I've talked to police officers that have seen him. I've talked to loggers. You know, this one woman who was saying, yeah, I was driving up, you know, we're taking my kids up to home, and we drove up this one street road, and this Bigfoot was right there, and he jumped across the road, and you know, you're watching these people tell the story. This is not BS. This is somebody who saw something. What it was, I don't know. Was it a bear? I doubt it. You know, was it a big dude? Yeah, okay, obviously, but you know, it had hair all over him. So what was it? I don't know. You know, I if I saw one. Well, I'll tell you one story. I was a really good friend of mine, Bill, who actually was the directing, who did the casting director of the movie. You know, he had a friend up in Grants Pass, Oregon, named Johnson, and I can't think of his first name, but he was up by the Oregon caves, and he got out into the woods to relieve himself, and as he is relieving himself, he looks over to the side and he sees a Bigfoot. Now the guy is 6'6", big dude, probably weighs 300 pounds, and you know, he's not anybody. I'm 6'2", weigh 250. You know, I can take care of myself. But this guy's scary to me. You know, he's so big, right? But that creature scared the bejesus out of him. And, you know, he ran back to his house, ran back to the car, got his kids in there, and hauled out of there. And, you know, and I've heard so many stories about sightings, and I haven't seen one, but, you know, I haven't seen God either.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you know, I'll tell you, I'm 6 foot and I'm a little over 200 pounds, and I could promise you, if I seen one, I would run too, probably. It depends how it approached me. It would be scary, you know. I'd be able to tell a bear from, you know, something else. So I guess that's why when people say it wasn't a bear, I tend to have to believe them, because I think that, you know, most people would know, unless it's from a distance. Now, here's one problem I have, is a lot of these people who come out and, you know, and they get in the spotlight with, hey, Bigfoot, 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 but they always produce like blurry pictures. And I'm thinking, come on, in today's technology, today's day of age, you can't get a good, clear picture. You know, there's a state trooper who claims he's feeding these things, a retired state trooper. This just come out, and he claims that he feeds them and that he's friends with them. And, I mean, here's a guy, he's a state trooper. Did he lose his mind, or is he really doing this? And if he is, you know, how about a few pictures? Come on.
Well, I told you about my friend Bigfoot Linda. You know, she has seen numerous times. She has seen Bigfoot. You know, she has absolutely no reason to lie to me.
Right.
You know, when I was talking to her, I told her I was just curious, and I don't remember how we hooked up in the beginning, but you know, I just told her I was just curious, and so we just started talking. In fact, she had written a book called "Who's Watching Me," or "Who's Watching You," or something like that, and you know, she had dozens of stories where people came to her and was talking about it. So I took some of her stories too, and I made that, and I changed everything. I changed names and everything to protect everybody. But you know, I mean, these are all based on true stories that people told about Bigfoot, and you know, I wrapped it around this nice little story that makes it easy to follow. And it gets scary once in a while too.
And so now you said that you had your own encounters, correct? You had sightings?
Yeah, the place where we called the Boneyard, you know, and the Boneyard. In fact, on my YouTube channel, I might have it on the Bigfoot Facebook page, but I put together this little video that showed some of the stuff that we had found. And I mean, you can't, you know, we don't have smell-o-vision yet, so you can't tell the smell or what was going on when we were, you know, that night, and the noises and whatnot. But we did catch some noises with the camera, and we have that on that video too.
I see.
Everything that we did, we tried to make it as factual as possible. You know, I saw a movie on the Sci-Fi Channel not long ago, and you know, it was called Bigfoot, right? And so it's got this you know, 20-foot tall Bigfoot walking around, and this girl's in the road, and she looks up, and there's this 20-foot Bigfoot, right? And she's a pretty girl, so what does this 20-foot Bigfoot do? It steps on her. Okay. Like she was some kind of a bug or something. So people portray the Bigfoot as dangerous. We didn't in the film. The film does not portray it as something that's dangerous. Just because, you know, like the character says, he says, you know, I've heard a lot of stories about Bigfoot, and the only time it's ever hurt anybody is when they're carrying a gun or shooting at it. And you know, and so he goes up into the wilderness. He ends up going up into the wilderness by himself, which makes it pretty scary.
And it is scary. You know, just a couple nights ago, my son Josh, who's in the chat room, he was in the chat room. He could tell you, you know, I'm outside the other night, and we've got woods around us. And for you know, I always hear little things here and there, but 2 nights ago, I heard, I mean, it sounded like something big was walking through. I mean, there was branches breaking, and I mean, it was unusual. And I'm out there a lot. I sit out back a lot, and again, surrounded by woods, very dark. You can't see anything, but boy, it was loud. And I started thinking, what would I do if a Bigfoot just stepped out of the woods into the light where I could see it? And you know, I pictured my anxiety getting really, really high. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, our imagination is our worst enemy, I think, sometimes.
It is. So for you, then you would say, in your opinion, that this creature or man or whatever it is real.
Well, there's got to be something to it. It's been going on for a long time, you know, and they discuss it in the movie too. That, you know, there's, you know, every year they discover dozens of new species. You know, in fact, the giant squid was just for hundreds of years was just reportedly a drunken sailor's nightmare, right? And so then they finally found one. You know, it was 50 feet long. And it's like, okay, so there blows that theory. Well, someday they're gonna find a Bigfoot. And you know what? They have found them. You know, they found them. I remember I read about this, and I can't remember. It's in Oregon, I think, out near Coos Bay, where they found a pile of rubbish, basically rubbish from an Indian tribe, and in that pile of rubbish was a body of a Bigfoot. And you know. And people reported it, but nobody said anything about it because it was a hoax, right? And so the scientific community says, well, it's all a hoax because we would have discovered it by now with all the cameras and all the infrared and all that stuff. But, you know, who knows how that works? You know, it's obviously a nocturnal animal, okay? I mean, it comes out at night, and if you're out there, it knows. And there's oh gosh, I can't remember. There's 50,000 square miles of forest up in Oregon alone that have not been, you know, explored or mapped, or people don't go there. I mean, that's a big area. And they also say that the Bigfoots travel several hundred miles a year. You know, that they migrate from one place to the next, like some kind of a nomad. And so if you're looking in one area, he might have moved on. And I don't know, you know, this might all be just some goofy story, right? But then again, you know, it's like the guy told me, he said, well, I don't believe in God. And I said, well, you must know everything then. He goes, well, what do you mean? I said, in order for you to know there is no God, you would have to know everything. So, you know, I think that God is something that you or I cannot even comprehend, grasp what that whole thing is. Like the man said in the documentary about the universe, there are things in this universe that we do not understand and that we will never be able to understand because our brains are such tiny, feeble little things, and the universe is so vast and so huge that there's no way that our little understanding, and I mean, anybody that comes up and says, yeah, well, you know, I know for a fact that there is no Bigfoot or whatever, you know, he's blowing smoke.
I totally agree with you, and that's why people have, through the years, I've been doing this almost 8 years, and I've had my critics who have said, "Oh, who could take you serious when you're talking about Bigfoot?" And and they've said it about the UFO phenomena too. And my whole thing is right back at them is, how can I take you serious if you're not talking about these things? Because there's millions of people who are witnesses to these things. I'm a witness to UFOs. I've seen them, so I know they're real. So anybody who's looking for all the answers, that's.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've seen. My wife and I seen a mothership. I'm not kidding you. This thing was. I call it a mothership. It was about the size of a football field, maybe bigger. And this thing just glided over us like it was no tomorrow. I mean, if I could have got on about 80 feet in the air, I could have hit it with a rock. It was so close. It made no sound, and if I did not look up, I would have never have seen it.
Well, see, and that's the thing, and people will say, "Gee, Michael, what were you smoking then?" I mean, the reality is not everybody gets to see it. I would love to have seen a Bigfoot. I would love to see an alien spacecraft. I agree with you. I think that they're real, and I mean, and again, this universe is so huge and so vast. Who's to say what's out there? And I mean, anybody that tries to say, "Well, there's no such thing," they're out of their freaking mind. There's people that still will tell you that we did not land on the moon, that there was that was just some staged thing, right? And the only way they would believe it is if we flew them up there and showed them the flag. That would be the only way that they would believe it. And even then, they'd say, "Well, you probably planted it there somehow." And one of the things that makes this movie interesting is that there is a skeptic along the way. His name is Dr. Joseph Klein, and he comes on the expedition to find Bigfoot because he is a scientist, and he's going to offer proof if it does. If they do find the Bigfoot, and so he's skeptical throughout the whole thing, and so there's this constant conflict going on between the two characters, and and it's fun and it's interesting, and again, like I said, it's just loaded with facts and information. And by the way, if your listeners have Netflix, all they have to do is put it in their queue, and they can watch it for nothing.
Oh wow!
So,
well, there's a good
so
deal.
make sure. Yeah.
And
if push comes to shove, you can buy it at Walmart. And also you can buy it online. There's a director's cut that's available online that comes with a poster. It's got some really, Michael, this has got some really great music too. We have a couple of songs that are specific to this. The Susan, who's in the movie, sings "Long, Long Ago." That's in there. We've got some fun music that plays at different times throughout the movie, and some pretty goofy, scary music that's fun. So what we're doing is, with the director's cut, we're going to send a poster, which is the one done by Dodie Clifford, and then we're going to send the CD, which has the music on it, plus the DVD.
Fantastic.
So,
and
that's $20. It's like lunch at McDonald's, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. McDonald's, which people don't need to be eating. Their French fries have 16 or 19 different ingredients, and I'm thinking, how do you get that many ingredients in what's supposed to be just a fried potato or a
right, you're supposed to have grease and potato, right?
Yeah, that's it.
So what are the additional ones? Yeah, maybe that's part of the, somebody was talking about the government conspiracy, to hide Bigfoot and do whatever, and to suppress the information about Bigfoot. Now, if there's any government people that are listening to your show, and maybe they're subversively listening to the show, I don't give the government enough credibility, or enough, what's the word? Enough intelligence to have a conspiracy about this. I think that we're being led by a bunch of morons, and I mean, we have been for years. When you have somebody like, the only conspiracy that I know about is Ollie North. You remember Ollie North sold all those drugs to our kids to support the CIA and his subversive things that he was up to.
Oh yeah, the CIA is responsible for a lot of the drugs that come into this country.
Still are.
Yeah.
I mean, they won't mess with the Afghan trade because the Afghanis, they need their money from their heroin, and our kids don't need that stuff going up their arms. I mean, this is a crusade that I've been on for a long time.
Well, God bless you, and keep it up, because, people think that we're crazy when we tell them, how the drugs get in this country. Because I'm thinking, how do you think that much dope I mean, really, people are that good that they're getting those shipments over the border and all that? I mean, and not getting caught? I mean, come on, people.
Yeah, well, there's got to be, and I don't have any proof of anything, but, if you have the right amount of money, going to the right places, they're not going to look, and I will tell you that, in China right now, there's a thing called K2 spice. It's synthetic marijuana. I don't know if you've heard about it.
I have. Very dangerous.
Yeah, it's a horrible stuff. My last documentary I did on substance abuse was on K2 spice. It's called K2 spice, A Nightmare Without End. And, they have thousands of labs in China that are manufacturing these substances, and they're sending them over here as experimental chemicals, and they spray them on the leaves, and it's killing our kids, filling up our psych wards. I interviewed 4 people last year whose kids were either killed or have severe mental problems because of it, and I mean, it's the scariest stuff I've ever seen.
And that's why I have been an advocate. There's many reasons I've been an advocate for legalization of marijuana, because the way I see it is then you can at least regulate it, make sure people are old enough before they buy it, and when they buy it, you know what you're getting. People can grow it at home and know what they're getting, and because what you just said is very, very scary, that somebody could go out and buy, $10 worth of marijuana, they want to catch a buzz, and I still say it's safer than alcohol. But then they go home and nobody told them that it was sprayed with China's wonderful fragrance that they put on it, and it kills you. And see, so this is what they'll do, because nobody's ever actually died of an overdose of marijuana, so now they could spray this stuff on it, and then somebody eventually will die from it, and they'll say, oh, see this stuff kills. And I mean, here's China, who we do trade with and all this other stuff, and it's allowed for them to send this crap into our country. I'm sorry, that just sparked me.
Well, that's okay, and it hit one for me too. You say nobody's ever died from an overdose of marijuana, but remember all those people that died on that train in New York because the guy was stoned on marijuana?
Oh yeah.
What's the difference between dying from an overdose and I mean, that's pretty selfish, right? I mean, because people die all the time from traffic collisions that are caused by people that were high on marijuana and other things, not just marijuana. But and it's like you come to the point, like, okay, you say it's more dangerous or not as dangerous as alcohol. Well, you're absolutely right. It won't cause as much damage to your body as alcohol does. But why do you need any of that crap to make your life better? You're getting the wrong kind of high, man. You need to find something else to do.
Right.
Seriously.
But I guess my point is that if it was legalized, it'd be easier to regulate, because it seems like it's legal in Colorado, and you got these other states legalizing it.
Yeah. There's going to be a documentary coming your way from Colorado, produced by me, because those people are having so much trouble because they legalized it. I mean, you got grade school 5th graders using it now, chewing gum that they bought, and it's available everywhere. And that's the problem with alcohol; it's available everywhere. And when you legalize it, you just put more of it in society. You get Philip Morris out there, and Madison Avenue selling this crap to our kids. Oh man, yeah, we got some serious problems. So I don't know, and I don't know what the answer is. I'm not going to say legalize it, don't legalize it, or whatever. I don't care about that, because if you're 10, everything is illegal. Cigarettes, tobacco, alcohol, it's all illegal. So let's focus on that, because here's what I know, Michael, and I'll come back to Bigfoot in a second.
Okay.
But here's what I know: that if you can prevent a youngster from using anything, any substance, until he's like 21 years old, when his body has matured, the chances of them becoming addicted to it is like 100 to 1. I mean, it's an amazing difference. But that's the big problem. These kids are using it. I've done 13 documentaries on this stuff. I have interviewed kids who told me Well, the biggest mistake I made was when I was 5 years old. I drank the beer out of my refrigerator. Sorry, pal, that wasn't your mistake. You've got to own it. I understand that, but there's the problem. See, and so we need to keep that effort up to teach these kids about the dangers of substance abuse.
Well, yeah, and that's where responsibility comes in too, and that's what we're lacking big time in society today is responsibility. You've got kids who have had kids, and I mean I could go on and on. So it's not like your mom and dad and my mom and dad were, they were responsible. My dad had a gun, but I'll be damned if I ever seen it. I mean, it was put away good, things like that.
Right.
He never smoked any pot, as far as I know. But if he did, he was really good at concealing it. So, and so I think responsibility definitely plays a role. And unfortunately, we have a society that is very irresponsible.
Yeah, and the Cliff's Notes version that's correct. I mean, as what we have to do as a society is we have to spend more time. We have to spend more time with our kids. We need to spend more time teaching them about stuff. In fact, some of these people that are teachers, I mean, they should not be teachers. They should be doing something else, because they, and I've had a run-in with my own kids. I've run in with a few of them, but anyway, back to Bigfoot, which is what the topic of the hour is. And, the movie it's a fun little movie. We've been getting great reviews, and it tells a wonderful story. And like I said, it's got this feel-good ending on it.
Well, that's great. And where can people get it too? Should probably let her. I have you linked up on our website, but there's probably people who are listening other places like TuneIn or what have you, and they might not, have access to the site. So. If you could,
okay,
yeah.
You can, BigfootChronicles.com. If you go to BigfootChronicles.com, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little link that says where to buy. Okay, so you can click on there, and you can get a list of Amazon or Vimeo. It's available at Walmart. You also can get, like I said, you can get the director's cut. There's just a number of different places that you can get it. I'm not sure if it's on iTunes yet. There was supposed to be. We had a couple of technical issues that we had to work out, so it didn't get on iTunes on July the 7th of the release date. But it is, people put it in there if they have the Netflix. Put it in their queue. Netflix will pick it up. We have enough people doing that, and that won't cost anybody anything. So. Whether they buy it or not, do that. Let's see, what else? Where else? I've seen it on eBay. I've seen it other retailers. So I mean, just have to look for it.
All right. So, Bigfoot. Let me ask you this: out of all the research that you've done, what is the best evidence that you've come across, if any?
Well, there's eyewitness accounts. To me, have a lot of weight in what we do, because, like I said, if one guy says something, that's one guy saying something. But when you have hundreds of people saying the same thing, describing it the same way, and all of a sudden it's like people describing the Greys, right? I mean, they always describe the Greys the same way. The people that have seen it, they always describe it with the big almond-shaped eyes and whatnot. Yeah. And it's the same thing with Bigfoot. You got a lot of people saying, but they have found some DNA evidence, and they found the remains in different places. There's been a lot of research. I'm not a scientist, and I don't know about all that, and I'm a storyteller, basically, and I've just told this story about the people who have seen Bigfoot and tracked it and whatnot. And so I don't know about evidence. I'm sure there's people out there that could. Jeff Melgren out of Idaho, you probably talk a lot more about that than I could.
Oh, okay, great. Well, let me do this. Let me give you the floor, and anything that you would like to get out, and we'll give people an opportunity to call in if they'd like. If anybody has questions or comments, you can call in at 803-317-2264, or you could call in on our Skype ID, Late Night in the Midlands, and this will be your opportunity if you want to get in on the conversation with us. But let me give you the floor, Thomas, and to get out anything that you'd like, whether it be about the movie or what have you, before we're done. And let me just say this: we may disagree a little on some things, but I think the work you're doing is great, and I think you're on the right track, and I thank you for it.
Well, it's my pleasure. And I really don't have a lot more to say about Bigfoot and the Bigfoot Chronicles. It's a great story. It's fun to watch. You'll feel good when you're finished watching it, and you'll also know a lot more about Bigfoot than you probably know right now. And that was my whole purpose behind this, was to make and I do want to stress one thing too, that when I made this, the first couple versions I had were kind of violent, and and they had some curse words in it, and it was more of an R-rated thing. And then I started thinking about my little granddaughter, who was 5 at the time, and I said, I think I would like to have her be able to watch this and learn something about Bigfoot. And so I my final version of it, I rewrote it to where there's no curse word in it at all. Nothing that's there's hardly any anger, except for the one girl. She gets kind of mad, but, so I really cleaned it up. There's no violence in it. And, it's just a great little story about these people that are interacting and talking about Bigfoot and finding out about Bigfoot. And I won't give the ending away, so I don't want to be like the Terminator, right? Because we're way ahead of the Terminator. I mean, they're down by $100 million, and I'm only down by less than $1 million. So we're way ahead of them. But I mean, when I did a movie several years ago about cage fighting, it's called The Cage Fighter, and this was back maybe almost 10 years ago now, but. That was back when cage fighting was still pretty edgy. John McCain had gone on the record of being totally against it. It was this horrible thing, and I kind of bought into that. And I went down and I talked to some of these fighters, and I got a whole different perspective. And so I kind of opened up this cage fighting, and this is exactly the same thing I've done with Bigfoot. I just open it up without an axe to grind, and I say, this is what it is. And you form your own opinion, because I'm a documentary filmmaker, and what I do is I sometimes I'll express an opinion about something, but only if it's an opinion, like the one I did about methamphetamine. Right. That's dangerous stuff. The one I did about K2 Splice, that's dangerous stuff. People shouldn't be smoking that, shouldn't be using that stuff, because it'll kill them. And so that's when I kind of get to the point where, I'll put my opinions in there, but like on the Bigfoot Chronicles, I don't have an opinion. It's like when I go down with my wife down to the paint store, and the paint salesman said, "What color do you think?" I said, "I don't have an opinion. Ask her." That's called living in harmony, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't care what color the walls are, because what goes on in my head is different. But that's the thing that I try to bring to my films, and I've always done this. And like I said, I've done over 35 of them. And it's just opening up the subject and saying, here's this and here's that, and you decide. You tell me. And Bigfoot Chronicles is like that. So I'm not grinding an axe. I'm not trying to say, oh, Bigfoot's real. Because I keep the discussion alive about what's going on with Bigfoot, whether it's real or not. And I made it to entertain people and to educate them. That was the main purpose of that.
Great. Well, maybe your next one will be on the UFO phenomena, and if it happens to be or anything close to that, I'd love to have you back to talk about it.
Well, my next one has to do with the eternal battle between good and evil.
Oh, well, that's interesting. I'm sorry. I said that's very interesting.
Yeah, well, it is, and it's basically a sequel to this. It's, we take our filmmaker Rock again, and he's out investigating these paranormal activities, and the basis of evil is manifested into a child molester, and the good is a father, a loving father, and so that's the battle between these two people, and and it goes deeper than the level of just people. I mean, it's two forces, and I, if you're, and I don't want to, it's not necessarily a religious film, but it does get a little bit into religion because because if you don't believe in good or evil, then you don't believe in religion. But if you do believe in good and evil, then you're going to have some sort of a religious base, whether it be Christianity or any other type of organized religion. Or like my son always said, my oldest son would say, I didn't grow up in a religious family. I grew up in a very spiritual family. And so that's the kind of what I bring to the equation, is just kind of a spiritual investigator. And this movie is going to be pretty powerful. And it's I've had, the script is like finished, and I'm just in the pre-production phases of it. My main focus right now is to get Bigfoot launched and to get it out into the world and get it going. And I've got most of the financing is already lined up on this show, Good versus Evil. It's really a great show. I mean, you'll love the characters. I mean, you'll love the one character. I hope you don't love the molester.
Yeah, I hope not either. And you can't really talk about good and evil without bringing religion into it to some degree. So I totally understand that, because that's really where the concepts of good and evil really come from, right?
Well, yeah. You look at somebody like Adolf Hitler. Now, here's an evil guy, You look at somebody like Idi Amin, evil people. I mean, and that's, and they weren't very religious. I mean, and you didn't have to be religious to know that they were evil. So there is an element of religion that we can maybe use as some kind of an evil meter, or some evil meter, like thermometers, evil meter. I don't know how to describe that, but I mean. Like the movie The Exorcist, that actually was an amazing movie to cause people to get into Catholicism.
Yeah.
That was probably the best recruitment film that was ever made.
It really was. And here's the crazy thing about it is, now I can't say whether it's real or not, but I can say that I've talked with people who have put forth some really good accounts of possession of demonic entities who tormented them in their homes. And so is that evil, or is that just people who are rotten in life that went to the other side and they're still rotten? I don't know, but something exists out there.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to our discussion earlier about knowing everything. I mean, the afterlife, is there such a thing? Who knows? I mean, I believe there is, but when you get right down to it, who knows? So, but, we'll find out soon enough. I'm not rushing into anything.
Me either, buddy.
But, I got some more stuff I have to do here, but, I mean, if as a Christian, I think I got it made. When I die, I'm going someplace special. And if I'm wrong, oh well. I've lived a good life, right?
If you're wrong, you won't know it.
That's right. But I will know it because I lived a good life, and I've lived a better than And I'm not saying that people who don't live as Christians are not living a good life, but I know for me personally, it's been a good life.
Well, and I think that when it comes down to it, I think that I've always had this idea that when you do cross over, you sit down at one of these little booths like they have in these stores that you fill out these applications now, and you sit at one of these and you watch your life, and if you cringe and you can't handle what you've done, well, then I think you've pretty much judged yourself, and until you could forgive yourself, I think that you have to be able to forgive yourself before you can expect anybody else to forgive you. So, and then it depends on what you did. I mean, you talk about pedophilia, someone like that, well, if there really is the depths of hell, that's exactly where they belong.
Yeah, and that's a horrible subject, and it's driving me to do it. And even though I don't want to do it, that's one of the ones that I'm being pulled into, and I don't know why.
Well,
but, I've had my own experiences with evil.
Well, you've had a lot of experiences, and I'm thankful for you sharing them all with us tonight, and I'm really sorry about the loss of your son. As a parent, I couldn't imagine going through something like that. And I've always been told by the psychics and these paranormal experts who've come on the show, and they always tell me that God doesn't throw anything your way that he doesn't think you can handle. And I guess that would be true, because I don't think I could handle something like that. I think it would totally crush me. And I'm glad that you've used it as an inspiration to do what you're doing, and I support you.
Well, and I guess my final thought will be that when some horrible thing like that happens to you, when you can see the benefits that you've derived from it, then that's when you've kind of arrived at the place where, to go back and change it all, I would in a heartbeat. Wouldn't have no question about it. I mean, I would change that in a heartbeat. But, it's made me who I am, and it's made me a better person. I have counseled countless people who have lost children along the way, and and I get it, and I understand with them what's going on. So that was a blessing for me. I would be a lot happier if he had died a war hero or something like that, but that isn't what happened. So I'm grateful that I'm still here, that I'm doing the work that I'm doing, and I'm grateful that you invited me to come and talk on your show. I think it's very nice for you to do that. And
well, thank you. And for the record, he did, in a sense, die somewhat of a hero, because if it wasn't for him, somebody else probably would have got killed. So you could look at it that way.
Yeah, well, yeah, he was killed by a drunk driver who happened to be his best friend.
Oh.
And so his best friend ended up going to prison for a year, and I could imagine what his life was like. I never stayed in touch with him after that, but my son died, and his friend went to prison.
No, that's rough. Well, I'm very sorry, and I'm glad that you've been able to go on and help other people, because that's important, and I'm sure it's part of the plan. So.
Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you, and I've got you linked up on the website, and we'll have you linked up in our archives as well, where that will remain. So thank you so much, and any new projects coming up, feel free to email me. I'd love to have you back. I enjoyed talking with you.
Likewise, and I will. I'll keep you posted on this Evil Is business.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Thomas, and God bless, my friend.
And God bless you. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, folks, there he goes. Wow, this man has gone through quite a bit. I mean, you heard he talked about the eye cancer, the prostate cancer, the loss of his son, and another son who was almost went down because of addiction to meth. Folks, that is some rough stuff, and this man has kept going, and he's done a good job. Hey, if you can support him, support him. I know some of you in the audience are definitely interested in Bigfoot. Support the guy, because he's doing a lot of work.
For global warming, because I've been worried about it ever since the first mastodon had died.
Yeah.
But I'm all about conservation and protecting our planet. That's a pretty amazing thing that's going on. But So anyway, I started writing this script, and I've written, oh gosh, 5 or 6 different versions of it. And I finally decided that I wanted a version that my granddaughter could watch. You know, and she was 5 at the time in 2010. She was 5, and you know, that to me was very important. So I made it totally G-rated, and you know, there's not a curse word in it. I heard your commentary on the fellas that were cursing and everything.
Yeah.
And you know, and like you know, I use the full spectrum of the English language, but you know, if I drop an F-bomb, you know something's going on with me. So I mean, it's appropriateness, and I kind of laugh at some of these people that the F word is the only adjective or adverb they know, you know, and they use it 5 or 6 times in a sentence, and it always cracks me up. So are you still getting that feedback?
Yeah, I am still. I'm actually hearing it a little worse now.
Yeah, too, and doesn't have anything to do with the fan, because the fan is off. And
it could be the computer's fan coming over the sound card, maybe.
Well, that is a possibility. Is that better? That seems to be better right there, huh?
Yeah, that does seem to be better. Oh, good. You hear it too, then, so then you know.
Yeah, so I don't know what it is, but now I'm standing farther away from the computer, so I'm hooked by a little cord.
Okay, well, I don't want you to stand the whole time.
Well, I'm doing a documentary. Most of my documentary work has been, you know, anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes in length. The Bigfoot Chronicles is an hour and a half. So I needed some vehicle to keep them engaged in it. And so what I did is I ended up writing a story about this filmmaker who had lost everything in his life, and he's approached by this coalition of Indian tribes to go up and film Bigfoot, do some Bigfoot investigation in the forest, and because they felt like this would help them fight off the threat of the powers that want to clear cut the forest. Now, Michael, I don't know if you've ever seen a forest after it's been clear cut. I've seen plenty of them.
Yeah, it looks like a war zone. And let me ask you, do you have a fan running nearby by chance? I hear a little fan going. Now,
is that better?
Yeah, that is better.
Okay, I do have a fan. I'm in a room that's pretty warm.
Okay, sorry about that. It's just
no worries. No worries. I just get a little ambient.
So yeah, I've seen a forest that has been chopped away, and it does. It looks like a war zone.
Well, in Oregon, you know, we've got some foreign countries that put ships off the coast, and they go in and they clear cut the land, and you know, they process the lumber outside of the, you know, outside of the waters of. Hang on a second. Let me turn this fan on.
All right, he's hooking us up, folks.
There we go. Outside of the waters, and I mean, what they're doing in the forest is it's gross. I mean, it's just disgusting. And you know, and they're doing it. They're taking all the resources out of the United States. So I mean, this is kind of about that as well, you know. But it's mostly about Bigfoot, and that's kind of one of the themes. And that's one of the little side notes that I put in there, because you know, I don't believe in, you know, going crazy over.
Good evening, Thomas. How are you tonight?
Well, I'm just great. Thank you very much. How are you?
I am doing just fine. And just for the record, if you don't want video, you don't have to use it because we're just audio.
Okay.
But that's up to you. If you want to keep it on, that's fine.
Well, you can see me react.
Yeah. And maybe if a Bigfoot comes through the wall.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So you can be the witness in case the Bigfoot comes up and grabs me for giving up the goods on him.
Right. Well, hey, Thomas, I welcome you to the show. I'm looking forward to getting into this a bit. I gave a very short, brief bio, and I guess we'll start out with maybe you giving a background, where your interest came in Bigfoot, and we'll go from there.
Well, people are always asking me, why did you do a movie on Bigfoot? I've been doing documentary films since the late 80s. And I've probably done, gosh, I lost count at 35. So, you know, it was in 1974. I went to this bar in Los Angeles called Charlie Brown's. Actually, it was Marina Del Rey. My cousin and I, we've been working all day. We just wanted to go get a cocktail or a beer or something. I can't remember what it was. And so we're sitting there at the bar, and this old codger comes hobbling up, and he was probably about 80 years old. And, so he just sat down, and just something about this guy was really, I've always been a people person. I love talking to people and meeting them and seeing what they're all about. So I started chatting with this guy, and his name was Wally. And Wally told me he was a lumberjack. Well, now we call them tree fallers, but back in the 80s or 70s, they were lumberjacks. And so I said, so tell me your story, Wally. You seem like an interesting guy. He said, well, what I want to do tell you about is my encounter with a Bigfoot. And I kind of chuckled, and I said, really? And he goes, yeah. And so he told me this crazy story about he was working like a... That's all right, I've been sitting all day. But don't worry about me, Michael. I know what to do.
All right.
So I'm writing this script, and I made this story about this filmmaker, the guy that's lost everything, and he's asked to go up to the mountains. At first, he refuses. He says, "I don't do fairy tales." And so they have a big discussion about Bigfoot, and they have a big discussion about other cryptozoological stuff, and like the giant squid, that they once thought was just a mariner's fairy tale. Yeah. And so they talk about the different kinds of new species that are coming up, and so it's really an engaging film. Now we've had several test viewings of it, and our focus groups that we showed it to, they loved it because there's a lot of humor in it. Because when you're making a movie about Bigfoot, you can't be too serious about it, right? so there's a lot of humor in it. But I'll tell you, one of the phenomena that I thought was very interesting is that, if you go to BigfootChronicles.com, at the very bottom, there's a thing called Special Offer, okay? Now, if you click on that, then what you're going to see is you're going to see the poster that we made. And I carried that poster around for probably 6 months as I was working on the screenplay. It actually took me about 2 years to finish the screenplay. But for about 6 months, I'm carrying this poster around. I have it in a binder, so a lot of people are seeing it. I go into restaurants, and the waiter, like one of them, Sherry's walked up to me. He says, "Oh, I've seen him. In fact, I was going to shoot one of them the other day." And he said, "But my gun didn't work." And I said, "Well, that's good." I'm sure he appreciates that. And then I had other friends that, like school teachers that I know that, said, "Oh, yeah, I've seen him myself." And, a good friend of mine who's a principal told me, and then I get random people telling me when I tell them what I'm working on, "Oh yeah, I saw," and it was late in the woods one night, and he's driving home, and he comes across this tree that's fallen across the road, and so, not thinking anything of it, he chains it up and pulls it back, and he gets back, goes to throwing the chain back in the back of the truck, and he says he's approached by this Bigfoot. This Bigfoot comes running at him and stops right in front of him. In fact, I put the story up on, the Bigfoot Chronicles Facebook page, and that, he just reenacts his story, and it's, we had an actor do it, of course, but because Wally would be 120 now or something. But this is the seed that was planted in me in 1974, and I'd always been into films. My dad worked for ABC, and so I've got kind of cellulite running through my blood, and so I, fast forward 25 years, here it is, 2010, and I decided that by golly, I've done a lot of documentary film work, and I really wanted to do, and I wanted to do something before that, but I just decided that I was going to go ahead and make a film about Bigfoot. And it was going to be a documentary at first. And so I started doing my research, and I ran across this woman named Linda. And I can't recall her last name, but I ended up, and I love her, but I call her Bigfoot Linda. And that's kind of my reference to her. And she told me some pretty amazing stories about growing up in the woods with her grandma and her grandpa and the interaction that they had with I guess, several Bigfoot that, they would trade meat for pies and bread and things like that. And, so I just decided that I was going to do, instead of a documentary, I was going to do a docudrama. So, because in a docudrama, you carry a storyline and, you can keep people engaged instead of just pouring out fact after fact after fact. And that's always the challenge.